Hello, so I'm Julian from Machines. I'm gonna guide you through some of the new products that we have for here in NAMM 2015. In first place, we have here our new MIDI sequencer, the SEQ12, which is a 12-track MIDI sequencer. It's got one MIDI input, 3 MIDI outputs, unless you control a lot of synthesizer. Basically, it's got 3 different modes: sequencing, jam, and song. In sequence mode, where we are right now, you can edit all the sequences in detail. Like in this case, this is the kick drum. You can go through, depending on each of the tracks, can be monophonic, polyphonic, or drum mode. So depending in which mode you are, you can have different parameters to change in these screens, like octave, accent, modulation, chords, velocity, length, shuffle, and then 2 control changes per part that can be really easy edited, all the curves by hand, or just randomize them quickly. Each of the tracks as well can be up to 16 steps, or any number under. All the tracks can be freely assigned to different steps, so creating complex polyrhythms is really easy. And if you run out on 16 is too little, you can link as many sequences as you want for having more complex phrases. Here is where you can edit all the clock subdivision, the 2 control changes assignable, what MIDI output you want to use, the MIDI channel, and the type of track. And then in jam mode is where you perform with the music, like in a kind of Ableton clip view, where you can mute and unmute different of the sounds and select their evolution in time. So it lets you either do it by hand or on an automation, which all of the behavior you edit in song mode, which is a wider way of editing all these different sequences. One of the really cool things about this sequencer is that everything can be done while it's running. So even saving, loading, and exporting, and loading a complete new project can be done without stopping the sequencer. So yeah, definitely a really musical way of composing and getting away from the computer. In second place, we have here the ADX1. It's our new analog drum machine, which is actually based in the old ADX1 by Musik and more. And it's a fully analog 5-part synthesizer. It's got 5 individual outputs for all the sounds, a stereo output, and you can also control hi-hat and snare with open and close. So you can actually use 7 notes for controlling all the sounds, and also controlling with MIDI the modulation source, which is a random generator. The original one, the real one, will have here triggers as well for triggering the individual sounds. And yeah, it's a really versatile drum machine that can get you sounds from TR-808, 909 to really gritty and organic kind of metallic sounds. At the moment, you can be hearing all the sounds that you're hearing, and with the FM options, you can get really, really cool sounds. And then the synth is basically 3 oscillators, an additive synthesizer with FM option, with modulation that you can get from tom sounds to really, really kind of sounds, really changing tones, really nice. The snare and the hi-hat as well are really versatile sounds, really, especially the hi-hat, I really love it, being analog. Yeah, and in the snare you have 2 bandpass filters that you can control. And the metal channel, which will give you metallic sounds, but you can get really realistic snare drums, you can get really realistic hi-hat sounds as well out of it. So definitely, all in all, a very versatile machine for all sorts of weird sounds. Here in the third place, we've got the VPED, which is a virtual pedal board. Basically, it's a host of VST plugins where you can load either VST effects, or you can load instruments as well. In this case, for example, if we want to edit any of the parameters, we can simply scroll through and edit them. Or for an easier way of working, we could hook an USB mouse and a keyboard, edit everything at home, save as many presets as we want, and simply scroll through them when we are on stage, so we don't have to actually go into really editing anything. It's not touchscreen because it will be on the floor, but we have an application for Android and iOS, which will let you control from a tablet externally all the functions. And in this case, for example, we can also see how we are using any of the freeware that we already include with it. And it will give you a small screenshot of how they will look, so it's much easier to scroll through the different ones. And yeah, once we have the, for example, in here, plug the MIDI USB keyboard, you can just play sounds. So it's not just an effect unit as it could look, but also really a powerful host for all sorts of sounds. It's semi-modular, so you can have totally parallel chains for the microphone input, for the guitar input, daisy chain them, or have individual going directly into the master. And for example, in this case as well, we can have the master channel being compressed by a big compressor, which is a really easy and good way to keep everything under control with a good sound, and maybe load on the last slot mastering channel, which will give you a much better sound overall. It's really easy to install everything. Well, also it's got a tuner, a looper, and a backing track system, so it can become a complete centerpiece for many musicians. And installing plugins is as simple as loading an USB, plugging it in, and you will have in here the tree with all the files that you need to access for installing quickly the VSTs. We call this a board with 12 slots, and you can have as many as you want for a gig, and switch between them without audible artifacts instantly. So it's a really, really convenient way of having really complex setups for a vocalist, a keyboard player, a guitarist, or all together as well. We're also working on, with the same engine, on a desktop version and a DIY version, which will be a PCB that you can install in any DIY project you are making, load your own VST plugin, and make really interesting stuff. In last part, we've got here the Cerebellus, which is a USB MIDI host, which is its mission is to transform any USB MIDI controller into standard MIDI. So you can use all inexpensive kind of USB MIDI controllers for nowadays for DJs and performers, but without a computer. And the interesting thing about it is that it's got a hub functionality, so you can plug as many USBs as you want in here, and they will all get merged into a single MIDI output. So it's a really tidy way of having many MIDI controllers without power supplies, and be able to control analog gear, modular synthesizers, and in general any system that doesn't require a laptop. So yeah, I hope you find the products interesting, and you're having a good show.